On chapter 14, before I left for Hong Kong 2 months ago, I finished the first 3 paragraphs on chapter 14 or section 14. So we should turn to page 13. Why, Subhuti, in a past life when my body was mutilated by Kali Raja, I had at that time no notion of an ego, a personality, a being, and a life. Now, for those who haven't come to a series of lectures before, you probably would not know what this paragraph means. There is a story behind the meaning of this paragraph. Many, many lives ago, many, many millions of years ago, there's a story about an ascetic by the name Kṣānti. There's an ascetic by the name Kṣānti, Kṣānti, who was mutilated by King Kali. King Kali once went hunting accompanied by his harem of concubines. You have to know the story before you understand this. How come in a past life when my body was mutilated by Kirajava? That is a story behind it. So, King Kali, Raja means king. Kali is the name. King Kali once went hunting accompanied by his harem of concubines. And after pausing for lunch, the king lay down and took a nap while the women wandered into the forest to gather flowers. Eventually, they came upon a place where ascetic Kṣānti was sitting in meditation, and they were so impressed by his serenity and his appearance, and they laid flowers before him as an offering. Kṣānti then talked to them about the philosophy of life they have never heard of, about which they were so eager to learn. And unwaking, the king went looking for his concubines, and when he saw them sitting before an ascetic, he was jealous, and he threw himself into a fit of anger and jealousy. So Kṣānti explained to the king that he was teaching them about forbearances, endurances, forbearance. So the king decided to give him a test, and he said, well, you said that you practice forbearance and you are teaching philosophy to my concubines. I think you're just trying to brag before my women and arouse their attention and admiration. So I want to test you. Gods, come and cut off both his hands and legs and nose and ears and see if he can endure it. I want to test him. So his gods proceeded to cut off the ascetic's hands, feet, and ear and nose. But the ascetic Kṣānti remained unmoved and was able to forbear, was able to endure such a cruelty, not a groan of suffering or anger from the in the process of mutilation. Now the king was moved. He now knew that Kṣānti is a saint and asked for Kṣānti's forgiveness. And Kṣānti said, well, if there is no anger in my heart, may my body be restored to its original condition with hands, feet, and ear and nose. And as a result, all this hand, nose, ear, it all came back again because of the merits accrued. So Kṣānti, this ascetic, was one previous incarnation of Sakyamuni Buddha. Later, he practiced so many lives later and became Siddhartha Gautama, and he became Sakyamuni Buddha. So Sakyamuni Buddha at one life, in one past life, was an ascetic Kṣānti, and his hands and feet and ear and nose were mutilated by King Kali, and he didn't express a groan. He didn't feel angry. He didn't feel hits. Why? Because it says here, I had at that time no notion of an ego, personality, of being in a life. And you know this fourfold fallacious conception of ego, personality, being, and life. He does not attach to form. He practices forbearance. No ego. No more ego, no more pain, no more suffering. Because we have ego. This body is only a retribution body. But we attach to this body as I. This is me. This body is me. This is a retribution body. A body that you come because of the karma you created in the past. This body is not you. This body is not me. It sounds funny, right? Where am I? Am I this body? No, you're not this body. Your retribution is this body. That's your karmic body. How come people are different? Some are stronger, some are weak, some are healthy, some are rich, some are poor. Why? Because the karma is different. The retribution is different. So, let's carry on. Why? Because in the past, when my body was dismembered, if I still held the conception of ego, a personality, a being in a life, I would have been stirred by feeling of anger and hatred. So you must understand ego, personality, being in life. You can't just understand it by looking at the superficial meaning. There's a lot of in-depth meaning in these 4 words. Next paragraph. Subhuti, I also remember that in the past, during my former 500 lives, I was a Zentistry and held no conception of an ego, a personality, and a being in a life. And 500 lives ago, he was another Zentistry, and he held no conception of ego, personality, being, and life. Talking about this body, talking about this retribution body, coming to realize, we're coming to realize to have this body, but our phenomena is not the body. By the way, how come we feel unhappy? Let's put it this way. How come our mind is not at peace? Everybody's looking for happiness, but how come we're not happy? How come our mind is not at peace? What's the reason? Always the questions raised like that. Well, I come to listen to the Dharma. I want to know how to be happy. How come I'm not happy? I have food, I have shelter, and to some people I have money, but even if I have money, I have reputation, I have wealth, I don't feel happy. How come? What's the reason? Well, to find inner peace or happiness, we must go through a spiritual growing up. We must leave the self-centered life and enter into the divinity life. You understand what I mean? Because we're spiritually immature. You have to grow up spiritually. But to grow up spiritually, we must leave this ego, self-centered life. But we must leave it. We're habitually attached to this self-centered life. But we must leave it, and it's difficult. As long as you're attached to this ego, self-centered life, you won't feel happy. But in the language of Sutra, we must leave the life that centers on ego, personality, beings, and life, the 4 fallacious conceptions. Once we have completely left the self-centered life, then we go into the realm of purity. And we call that, sometimes in Sanskrit, we call that nirvana. How do we go into nirvana? Nirvana is to leave the self-centered life into, or maybe in common English, divinity. Some people may call it God. Or some people like to say, we have to leave this self-centered life to the God-centered life. There's no difference. You just use another word. And this God concept, don't attach just to the word. Don't idolize God. It's not a person. In the sutras, so many words were used. Anuttara samya sambuddhi. You know, anuttara samya sambuddhi. We also use taratta. We also use, what do we use? We also use dhammatta. We also use talagatta gabba. So many, we just simply use the word Bodhi, B-O-D-H-I. It's enlightenment or nirvana. So you name it. There's many religions call it just God. It does not matter. So we don't oppose any religion. They just call it in a different name if they're going through the same path. But we have to call it something. So we have to leave this self-centered life to that life which we call, for the sake of simplicity, we call it Bodhi. We must go to Bodhi. We must call it something, otherwise we cannot express it. So just to repeat, to find inner peace or happiness, we must go through this spiritual growing up. We must leave self-centered ego and enter into divinity. How do we do it? How do we achieve this spiritual growing up? How do we achieve this spiritual development? People just habitually looking for what? Wealth, status, reputation. But they don't know they should gear themselves into this internal spiritual growing up, spiritual development. Now how do we do that? How do we leave the self-centered life and enter into divinity life? The Diamond Sutra here teaches us to start with training our senses to detach from the 6 corresponding fields of these 6 senses. You know what I mean? Now let's carry on, let's read on, then you know what I mean. That is why Supadi Bodhisattva should forsake all conception of form and resolve to develop the supreme enlightenment mind, or Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi. Their mind should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and Dharma. Their mind should abide nowhere. That's a very important paragraph. The mind abiding in nowhere, the mind not abiding in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and Dharmas. What are these? The Diamond Sutra, in other words, tells us to leave a self-centered life and get into the spiritual growing up. You have to train your 6 senses. The 6 senses get us into trouble. But we can also train the 6 senses to lead us into enlightenment. It's just like fire. Fire is a good servant, but a very bad master. Fire can burn you. Fire can help you. We don't hate eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, but we must not let them carry you away. Let's analyze this, because this paragraph is important. What are our 6 sense organs? So you can see the Buddhist teaching is very practical and very scientific. It's not about idolizing. It's not about worshiping and kneeling down and idolizing an idol. No. This is not the way. The Buddha says, train your 6 senses. First of all, you have to understand what your 6 sense organs. Eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body. These are the forerunners. These are the front-end salesmen, I always call them. And there's another manager right inside. That's the mind. The general manager is controlling all this eye, ear, nose, tongue, body. And this team get us into trouble. So do you realize that you have this kind of senses? Now this kind of senses get us into trouble, but it can help us at the same time. And finally, there's also the mind. The mind controls these senses, but the mind also creates its external objects. Because even if you don't have these senses, your mind is still working. Your mind can create things. You close your eyes and you don't listen to anything. You think about yesterday. You have an image of yesterday. You think about how bad that person is. You have the image of that person you hate. You think about how good this person is. You have an image of that person you love. Because there's no external objects. There's no form, sound, smell, taste, or external objects. It's just image in your mind. That is also an object. But there's a more subtle object, There's a more powerful object. So when you understand this, then you won't allow your mind to be carried away. For example, I'm a monk. And I'm meditating in here. Let's get I as an example. How I correspond to form. I'm a novice monk, or even I'm a trained monk, for example, and I'm meditating outside, and suddenly I catch sight of a beautiful woman, for example. So my eyes catch sight of a beautiful woman. And all of a sudden, I lose my thought. I don't have my thought again. I don't have this anapanasati. I lose my thought because there's a certain thought arises in me about this feminine beauty, or whatever you want to call it. And then my thought gets carried away, and I start to look and look and look and look. And in the process of looking, there's a subtle thought inside of me coming up. I'm carrying away, my mind is being carried away. I lose my concentration. Now, this is for a monk. And then a monk look and look and look, and suddenly, oh no, this is not what I should do. I should concentrate. I should concentrate in meditation. I shouldn't have this sensuous desire in me. Now, this is for the monk. But ordinary people, they just get carried away. They continue looking and they continue walking, and then they get another site and look at another site. And then when they go home, they key onto the computer and the internet and pursue further looking. Or they want to do it, actually. They want, let's do it. It's better to do it. See, that thought arises because of the form, leads you into a lot of volitional action. Even raping, violence, you name them, criminal offenses, all comes from eyes corresponding to forms and attachment being carried away. So the eyes lead you into trouble. The eye arouses the sensuality. And because of this sensuality, you could commit more problem. Criminal problems. Or an affair. Affair leads to a broken marriage. There's so many consequential actions that follow because of this I of yours. Attaching to that, a thought arises, and your thought being carried away. The same holds true for many things. And you're shopping, for example, your eyes catch sight of this. There's a teenager, at Christmas time, she was shopping, and she got sight of this beautiful doll, and there's nobody around, and she got greedy, and greediness arises, and the thought of theft comes up. She would just want to, nobody around. She just shoplifts it. So this I corresponding to form, the I consciousness is created in you, and this gets further action. Why? Because that's all generated from the ego. The ego of greediness, the ego of ignorance, the egos of insatiable desires. So I corresponds to this form, and that applies to many things. For the average person, they always get carried away. Anger, hatred, jealousy, all mental afflictions, fraudulence, negligence, parsimony, unbelief, deceitfulness, hypocrisy, you name them, is all because of the senses attached to external environments, external objects, and get carried away. Why are we meditating? When we're meditating, we're training to control our senses. When your senses are out of control, when our senses are out of control, we're in trouble. So that's the eye and the ear. How about the ear? The external, the corresponding fields of this sense organ is sound. So one day you were in a party, and John comes up to you and say, "Hey, Bill, the other day you said something I don't like. You know, you shouldn't have said that. I don't like it. You belittle me, and I don't like it. I'm going to get even with you, and then an argument and all that. Something bad is going on, because this sound of criticism, this sound of malicious tattletale, this lying or whatever gets into your ears. You attach to it. The sound is formless. The sound itself does not have that much power, but it gets into your mind. You attach to it egoistically. So your ear corresponds to this sound. Lots of volitional actions will follow. Say if I'm a trained monk, when I listen to this sound of malicious criticism, I won't let it I won't let it overcome me. I just let it go. I won't be carried away by it. So that's meditation. The meditation is to train up your senses. Finally, it trains up the mind, not be carried away by external objects. So, all these 6 senses, this paragraph, that is why Zubudi, the mind should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and dharma. The mind should abide in nowhere. I think we should continue more with this, because that's the crucial issue in here. How do we leave the self-centered life into this divinity life? We must practically know the technique of doing it. Somebody can tell us, oh, get away from being selfish and be unselfish. But how to do it? Just a general remark. But the Diamond Sutra gives you specific techniques. Watch your senses, your eye, your ear, your nose, your taste, your touch, and your mind. Watch your mind. You can watch your own mind. But many people think that the mind is you. How can you watch your mind? The mind is you, is analogous to you. But that mind is not you. That is a delusive mind. Not your real mind, not our real mind. We're trying to find out that real mind. We want that real mind to reveal itself. That's called realization. That's called enlightenment. But we have to train ourselves. In order to get it, we have to train ourselves spiritually. That's the meaning of spiritually growing up. We are spiritually immature. That's the reason we have so many problems in the society, so many problems at home, so many problems on the work site, so many problems with the individual, with his life. Because we only center upon materialism. We only center upon material needs. How much money we make per month? Do we have a car? Do we have a house? And good clothes? Good, everything is good food. We're only looking for those. Material. We never look inside for spirituality. And we need training to do it, not just talk about it. It's easy to take a book from the library, all these Buddhist books, and just talk about these Buddhist books. It's easy to talk about it. But it's in the Chinese language, it says, if you talk for 100 days, it's better to walk a day. For 100 days you've been talking about flowery language. You're a good preacher. You are very good you're very articulate. But it's better to walk that one day, but in talking about flowery terms for 100 days. Now, we've been talking about bad thoughts, bad, malicious thought coming up. You don't want to be carried away. Or external objects by themselves, per se, they're not erroneous. They're objective. It's you, it's me that is subjective. There's nothing wrong with that handsome boy. It's just the girl who aroused that sensuality. That's the problem. Don't blame the external object. It's you, your mind. Don't blame the sound for the criticism. The sound itself is innocent. The sound is untainted. It's not the sound. It's your mind that attached to the sound. So, a bad, malicious thought comes up. We don't attach to it. We just let it go. We're like a mountain. Let the clouds drift by, and we won't be carried away by that cloud. We're like a mountain, unmoved. Not a change. Can we do that? Extremely difficult. That's why people get angry, get jealous, get excited, get depressed. That's the reason why people have inferiority complex. They feel inferior. Nothing to do with external environment, objects. It's the inside that works against you. Your self-centered life that works against you. So that's about the bad, malicious thought. How about good, benevolent thought? Some people say, no, my thought is not always bad. I always have good thought. Or let's don't go this good thought first. Let's talk about, how about a neutral thought? My thought is not always bad. I'm watching television. It's a comedy and I laugh. I don't have any bad thought against anybody. And I watch a violent movie. I feel excited. I'm not hurting anybody. I feel excited. Good. Or I'm watching a porno and I feel sensuous about it. I'm not hurting anybody. What's wrong? Some people ask questions like that. Well, and some people say, I'm watching a drama and I feel sentimental. What's wrong with being sentimental? A thought comes up to me. I'm emotional, I cry, and I feel good when I cry. Some people watch a bad drama and he or she may cry. And I'm not hurting anybody. And that thought comes up to in me, what's wrong with it? Well, this thought may not be harmful to others. We still shouldn't be carried away by those thoughts. Because self-excitement, self-sensuality, sentimentality, these are pollutants. Because being excited, you're watching a violent movie, being excited, you're nurturing seeds of excitement in you. Because you may, underneath you may want that kind of violence give excitement. Or if you're watching a drama, you will be overwhelmed with the sadness, and you like that sadness. You're being very pessimistic about it. So in other words, all these neutral feelings could be just pollutants which are nurturing seeds in your higher consciousness. Why do you allow pollutants to get into your wisdom well? These thoughts are not hurting anybody, but they could be harming you without being noticed by you. It's just like when a kid is watching some movies that is restricted, he's not hurting anybody, but he's hurting himself. He's nurturing these seeds in his consciousness that may sprout, that may get into action. Because he can think about it, he can perpetuate that thinking. And that perpetuation could lead to many, many consequences, dire consequences, which may not be good. So, Buddha told us, watch every one of your thoughts. Not just watch your behavior. Your behavior comes from the thought. That's very practical in spiritual development. It's easy just to read books about Buddhism and buy a lot of books from chapters and read about them, and you think, I am enlightened because I read those books. Just by reading won't do you any good. You have to walk just by looking at the map. This is the map to Richmond. And you never get walking. You read the map as you're walking. You don't start your first step. How can you ever be to Richmond? You take your map, put it in your hand, and you say, this is to go to Barat, this is to go to Kṣānti. You just walk with the map in your hand at the same time. Not just sitting at home and looking at the map. You're not getting anywhere. Now, how about good, benevolent thoughts? Well, good. Should I have those kind of thoughts? I'm always compassionate. I'm very helpful. I have a lot of plans in my mind. I have a lot of missions to accomplish. Should those thoughts be good then? Of course they are good. They're helpful, they're compassionate. They are thoughts of the Bodhisattvas. Well, to elevate our thinking to a higher level, the world that we're living in is a world of desires. And there's another level of existence of another world, which world without desire, but with form. We call it the Rupadhatu. And there's another world of a higher being, we call it Arupadhatu, that is world without desire and without form. How do people get reincarnate into those better realms than us? In other words, for first-time comers, this just sounds like something you may not have heard of. I thought this is the only world. There's no other world. The Buddha says there's thousands of other worlds. But according to the level of wisdom, this is the world of desire. We come to this world because in our previous lives we were infatuated with desires. That's why our retribution body brings us back to this world. But there are people who have less desires, whose karma is purer than us. They were not reborn in here. They were at a higher level, much higher level than us. They don't have desires. Now, of course, the definition of desire I already have done, and I'm not going to. Some people like to argue, what is desire and what is included in desire? Is desire any good? What is? No, I'm not going to discuss that anymore because we spend hours discussing those. Just for now, take it for granted that desires are negative desires. And in this higher levels, Rupadhatu and Arupadhatu, they have only happiness. And why did they get reborn in there? Because when they were in this world or in other worlds, they were always cultivating compassionate good thoughts. They were always conform to precepts. They don't kill, they abstain from killing, from lying, from sexual misconduct. They abstain from bad deeds, and they only do good deeds. And after they die, their retribution body will be realized in a higher level. Some other religions may call it heaven. Be born in heaven. So if we always have this benevolent thoughts, it's extremely good. Benevolent thoughts, they are more conforming to enlightenment. In other words, bad, malicious thoughts are obstructions and thorns and ruggedness in our path of enlightenment. Whereas good, benevolent thoughts are clearances for us, are paving for us, letting us walk to enlightenment. They're more in conformity, in harmony with Dharata and with Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi than bad thoughts, of course. But they still are thoughts. And also we have to watch, sometimes on the surface, we may have this compassionate thought. For example, monks also have that, thoughts too. We thought that we're always promoting the Buddhist teaching to a lot of people. And it's a good thought, compassionate. We want to help our people. We want to promote, to let people know this is right and this is wrong. But a thought is so subtle. A thought has this crude perspective, has this crude layer, and also has this subtle layer. We could have, in the surface, we could be promoting the Buddhist teaching, be compassionate and kind, but right underneath that thought, we may think in this way: if I do that, then I will have blessings. I will have blessings from Buddha, and I will be better. I will be helping myself. By helping others, it bounces back to me, so that it helps me. And Buddha would bless me if I do that. So in other words, you're looking for repayment, but it's so subtle that you don't realize it. And the Diamond Sutra said, even that thought, throw it away. Do not abide your mind in anywhere. But that kind of subtlety would not be noticed by even trained monks. So even good thought, you really have to watch it. You must not attach to it. I'm being compassionate because it bounced back to me. It will be helpful to me. I will be better. Or, by promoting Buddhism, I would appear to be more knowledgeable. Or I'm the leader. Or I'm good. And you think I'm good. All this is egoistic. But it becomes so subtle that I may not realize it. I built a gracious temple. It's one of the biggest temples in Richmond. And I'm promoting Buddhism, but right underneath it, I have this ego. I built this temple. I'm great. That subtlety is unnoticed. But it's still a good thought, a benevolent thought. So, good, benevolent thought, of course, 1,000 times better than bad thoughts or neutral thoughts. Better than neutral thought, not to say bad thoughts, but really have to watch. No attachment whatsoever, even in compassion. You remember the faith mind maxim that we talked about many years ago, and by Zheng Chan. It says, and I'm quoting from there. It's good to review it. It says, "Never adhere to dualistic views." What does that mean? Good, bad, ugly, beauty, hatred, love. Don't attach to anything, even the good ones. But you still do good. You still be compassionate, but don't attach to the compassion. It's difficult. Ordinary people, they already attach to bad thoughts or neutral thought. For more or less enlightened people, they attach to good thought and benevolent thought because they still haven't escaped the confines of duality. We're always living in a dualistic world. Love and hatred, tall and short, rich and poor. We always discriminate. We live in duality. We discriminate. So it says, never adhere to dualistic views and sincerely avoid pursuing them. With even a hint of right and wrong, the mind is lost in total confusion. This is right, this is wrong. This is love, this is hatred. This is rich, this is poor. This is my son. You're only my friend, so I love my son better than you. So you always differentiate. It says duality comes from the one, but the one should not be cherished. If the one mind is not born, myriad dharmas, so not offend. I don't know what it means. I'm not going to explain the meaning, but just quoting the sentences out for you to consider. No offense and no dharma, no birth and so no mind. Subjects vanish following objects, and objects disappear following subjects. I continue. Objects are objects due to subjects. Subjects are subjects due to objects. You know what I mean? Objects are objects due to subjects. Subjects are subjects due to objects. When you know these two intimately, they are one voidless originality. Object is because of this subject. The subject because of this object. Both are erroneous. No subject, no object. No Dharma. No eye, no ear, no taste, no touch, no sound. Let's repeat from the Heart Sutra. Let's repeat that. The Heart Sutra is profound. It says here, therefore in emptiness there's no form, nor perception, nor conception, nor volition, nor consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body or mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or object of mind. No realm of the eyes up to no realm of consciousness, because there is no object to be obtained. So when you read the Heart Sutra, how come everything is negative? No eye, no ear, no taste, no sound, no smell? It's just you don't understand it. It does not mean being negative. It means no attachment. However, our eyes, our six sense organs correspond to the six fields, but you don't hate fields. You don't hate sound. You don't hate sight. You don't hate smell. You don't hate dharmas. You just allow them to come by. You just don't get carried away by them. Let's read on, next paragraph. If minds abide somewhere, it will be in falsehood. This is why the Buddha says that Bodhisattva's minds should not abide in form when practicing charity. So the Buddha gave just the first example. Remember, there's 6 paramitas: charity, morality, diligence, endurance, meditation, and prajna. So the Buddha used charity or giving as an example. Don't abide in form. You still give, but you give unconditionally. You don't give asking for return. You don't give thinking that, oh, I get blessings from Buddha because I give. That's conditional. If I don't get blessings from Buddha, I won't give. Because I always have object in my mind. I always have a purpose in my mind. I'm not dumb. If I do something, there's something I must get back. Now, that's not giving. That's not real giving. Of course, that's already a higher level because you know that you should be doing good things, good action. There are other people who don't even give. They're not a bit generous. They're parsimonious. So that's the reason why people are different. Some people are rich, some people are poor. It all comes back to them. It all catch up with them for what they have not done. Or what they have done, they get retributions. They got repayment. All this is cause and effect. Cause and effect will still work out that way. Subhuti, all Bodhisattvas should thus make offerings for the welfare of all living beings. The Tathagata speaks of forms of phenomena which are not form, and of beings who are not beings. How come forms are not forms and beings are not beings? Are they contradictory? Forms are not form and beings are not beings. In the realm of voidness, in the realm of emptiness, there's no form. Because a form is form because of causality. This is form. This is a form. This is here because of conglomeration of causes put together that we have a creation, an existence of this chime. But it only exists temporarily. It exists because of all these causes put together. It exists because we use it. Somehow, it does not have its real, actual, per se existence. It exists on causes. It is empty. We don't attach to it. We don't hate it, but we don't attach to it. Just like our body. How come our body is a body? our body comes into being because all these causes put together that we have this body. But this body finally has got to go because it is a form, and all form is unreal. It exists, but it's unreal. It only exists for temporary time. And you cannot control this. You are not the eternal control of your body because it does not have its real nature. It is not reality. Only the reality exists. And that reality cannot be spoken of. It can only be felt in your enlightenment. It can only be revealed in the wisdom. It can only be revealed in the spiritual growing up, in that spiritual development. It can only be revealed if you follow the Buddha's teaching to build up your spirituality. It's up to you, not up to Buddha. Nothing to do with Buddha. It's up to us. You walk your own path. Buddha can only give you the map. You want to walk to Richmond? You got to walk. You need the map. The map is given to you. Are you willing to walk or you don't care? You never get to Richmond. By walking and referring to the map, you'll be there. You may get to a lot of detours, but giving a lot of help, saints, bodhisattvas, you'll be guided back. That's why bodhisattvas are all ready to help. They're all standing by the road. They are standing guard on the detours. Hey, don't walk this way, going that way. You're out. These are bodhisattvas. And sometimes we like to communicate with them by chanting sutra. You will be in communion with them if you're chanting, if you're meditating, if you're saying your prayers, if you're performing your good thoughts, your good actions, you are communicating with them. If you're not doing this, you're getting away, further and further away on your detour from the right path. So we are very lucky. We have bodhisattvas and saints who are helping us in our spiritual growing up. Some of these bodhisattvas and saints, we can see them. Some we can't. And they may not be in the forms of monks. They may be in the form of heroes, heroines, good doctors, or you name them, politicians. And of course, sometimes they're in invisible forms. Avalokitesvara, Mantrasvara Bodhisattva, even arahats, Siddhagapa Bodhisattvas, Mantras Bodhisattvas. That's why we chanted the names of the Bodhisattvas. We always remind ourselves they are ready to help us. We need their help, but you need to talk to them. Let's continue. Subhuti, the Tathagata's words are true and correspond to reality. They are ultimate words, neither deceitful or heterodox. Subhuti, the Dharma and the Tathagata has obtained is neither real nor unreal. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva practices charity with a mind abiding in things, or Dharma, he is like a man entering the darkness where he cannot see anything. If a bodhisattva practices dana or charity with a mind not abiding in Dharma, he is like a man with open eyes who can see everything in the sunshine. Last paragraph. Subhuti, in future ages, if a virtuous man or woman is able to receive, hold in mind, read and recite the sutra, the Tathagata, by means of the Buddha wisdom, will know and see clearly that this person has immeasurable and unlimitable merits. So, why did the Buddha mention this? The Buddha mentioned this because Subhuti thinks in his mind, since we don't attach to anything, is there any merits in the doing this? Is there any blessings? The Buddha said, you don't have to attach to the merits. The merits just come naturally through causality. The merits is always there. You don't have to attach to it. I remember a poem of a Zen master, Wei Kai, in the Sung Dynasty. Wei Kai, and it's a very good poem. Maybe let me say in the Chinese language for my translation in my mind, because if I don't say this Chinese sentence, I cannot translate it. It has to go through my machine. 春有百花，秋有月. Spring comes with abundant flowers. Autumn shines the night with the loveliest moon. So, spring and then autumn, the 4 seasons. Spring, abundant flowers. Autumn, lovely moon. Summer drips gentle breeze. Summer gives you very gentle breeze. When you're in the open wild, in the pasture, it gives you very gentle breeze. Winter gives the white snow. So all 4 seasons are good seasons, are good. You feel good about it. There's certain times in the year you feel happy. 若无闲事挂心头，便是人间好时节. But I say your best season is when you have no obstacle in your mind. That's the best season. Not the flowers, not the moon, not the breeze, not the snow. The best season is when you don't have a trace of attachment. When you don't have a trace of attachment, you're all pure. Much purer than a lovely moon, much gentler than the gentle breeze in the summer, much purer than the white snow, and much more abundance than the flowers, innumerable flowers around you in the springtime. So, if your mind does not abide in anywhere, no trace of mental afflictions, no anger, no jealousy, no hatred, no depression, no fraudulence, no negligence, no deceitfulness, none of these things in your mind, not a trace, that's the happiest moment. If you perpetuate that happiest moment, that's enlightenment, that's nirvana. But don't just talk about it and feel happy and that's it. You got to practice. When your eyes get carried away, you know, oh no, I got to put it back. The monkey got away. My thought being carried away. Stop. When I want to do something bad, no, I can't do it. Stop it. So that's the reason why we have to take precepts. That's the first step in the training. Talking about this, tomorrow we'll have 21 people taking the 3 refuges, and there's a few people taking the 5 precepts. You really have to know that you have the Vinaya in your mind, have those precepts and morality in your mind. That's the front end guard for you. Because when your thought is being carried away before, who tell you? Who tells you that, oh, don't do that, don't get carried away? Who is that God who's telling you not to do wrong and do good? That's all the precepts, your morality standard. That's on guard for you. That's in your mind, that's on guard for you, telling you this is not to do. So the Buddha's teaching is practically training yourself, not just talking about it, not just coming to do meditation on a Saturday morning and then take your lunch and then that's it, and you go back to your wealth, your greediness, your hatred, your ignorance, your selfishness, your egoistic views. No, not that. When you walk out from this temple, you have to train every thought, not to say every step, every action, every thought you have to watch it. Being mindful. What is the Theravaда's mindfulness? Every thought, the arising, the maintaining, the sustaining, and the passing away of it. You watched it. Then you know what you should do and what you should not do. We require a lot of training in this. I'm still undergoing that training. I'm still learning until I get enlightenment. I'm still a student, because every day I know that I have to learn. Every day I know that I got to train myself. I can be better. The final enlightenment will come to pass to me. I will realize it. But I have to learn. I have to take all these steps. I have to practically carry it out, not just talking about it. Empty talks won't serve you. If you talk well, that is self-aggrandizement. So some of the practitioners, they don't talk. In the Zen masters, they don't talk. But if you see their action, their behavior, you respect them more. Even they don't say the word. It's their inside that expressed it. And we need words, but this words is only a raft to get to that shore of enlightenment. Once we get ashore, we'll leave these words behind. Don't attach to the words. So I finished chapter 14, fortunately, and I'm going to chapter 15. And so we're proceeding. We're not stagnant. We're proceeding. And the Diamond Sutra, if you don't listen to people's explanations or read some books that explain it, you won't understand it, because it sounds contradictory. It's very subtle, very philosophical, but you really need to know how to interpret it in the right way.